A 27-year-old man dreams of building vertical farms to solve urban food shortages. Every night after work, he sketches his ideas in a notebook, believing his project could make a difference. But when he shares his idea with colleagues, they laugh and dismiss it as impossible. Though disheartened, he silently holds on to his dream. He begins experimenting in his small apartment, planting seeds in recycled bottles using leftover water. While neighbors give him strange looks, he remains undeterred. His once empty room transforms into a small green haven, symbolizing his determination to create change. His first attempts fail. Plants wilt from lack of water or are eaten by pests. Though tempted to give up, he chooses to start over. He improves his irrigation system and protects the plants, explaining to the community how this project could benefit them. Slowly, people start to join him, turning his efforts into a collaborative mission. A year later, his vertical farm becomes a vital source of food for the community. Fresh produce reaches those in need, and the neighborhood is filled with smiles. Standing amidst the vibrant greenery, he feels proud of what he has achieved. He may not have changed the entire world, but he has transformed the lives of many. Every morning, the man looked at himself in the mirror and asked the same question: if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do today? For months, his answer had been a resounding no. Yet he continued working at the same office, feeling trapped in a cage. His job provided money but left him with no sense of purpose. One night, he came home and stumbled upon an old notebook from his school days. As he flipped through the pages, he found a section where he had written about his dream of becoming an artist. The memory sparked a small excitement in his heart, but the thought quickly faded as doubt crept in. Art can't make money. He tried to brush it off and go to sleep, but the question from the mirror lingered in his mind. The next morning, he decided to quit his job. Fear loomed over him, but he knew he needed to follow his passion. He dusted off his old sketchbook and started drawing again. The path was fraught with challenges, unstable income, and discouraging words from those around him. But he chose to take the leap anyway. A year later, the man stood in an art gallery hosting his own exhibition. His paintings received admiration from visitors, and for the first time, he felt a deep sense of purpose. One morning, he looked at himself in the mirror again. When he asked the familiar question, he smiled and answered, "Yes, I want to do this every day." Every day began the same way: a desk, a computer, and an endless stream of tasks. She worked diligently, but her heart felt hollow. The routine suffocated her, and every morning she silently asked herself, "Is this really what I want to do with my life?" The answer had been no, for too long. One evening, after another exhausting day, she passed by an art gallery. The colors and emotions in the paintings called to her, stirring something deep inside. As she stood there, she felt an undeniable longing, a spark of inspiration that had been buried for years. The next morning, she sat at her desk staring at the screen. Her mind wandered back to the art gallery. Could she truly leave her stable job to chase a passion so uncertain? The thought terrified her, but it also felt right. She wrestled with the fear of failure and the hope of finding fulfillment. That weekend, she joined a painting class. It was a small step, but with each brushstroke, she felt more alive. The path ahead was unclear, but she knew she couldn't settle for less than a life filled with purpose. For the first time in years, she felt the joy of creating something meaningful. Standing atop a crumbling tower, a young woman with silver hair gazed over a shadowy city ruled by the oppressive high order. Her violet eyes burned with a vision of change, where magic and innovation thrive together. Her dream consumed her, but every time she shared it, people dismissed her as reckless. Yet the vision remained, unyielding in her heart despite the isolation it brought. In an underground workshop, she poured her energy into creating a device that fused magic with mechanics. Sparks flew as she worked tirelessly, her hands trembling with determination. When she presented her invention to a group of rebels, their skepticism stung. Many doubted her, but she stood firm, vowing to prove that revolution was possible. One fateful night, the Order raided her hideout. Her device exploded in the chaos, leaving her plans in ruins. Captured and chained, she was paraded through the city as a warning. Despite the humiliation and doubt creeping in, her violet eyes remained defiant, clinging to the embers of her dream. With the help of a loyal ally, she escaped to the mountains. There, she refined her invention, learning from her mistakes. The new device glowed with stability and power, a symbol of her unyielding resolve. Returning to the city with the rebels by her side, she lit the first beacon of revolution. The spark she ignited began to illuminate the shadows, proving that change was worth every struggle. In a cramped workspace, a young inventor stared at scattered blueprints. For months, he had poured his heart into designing a revolutionary device, only to face repeated dismissal. Doubts weighed heavily, but his vision refused to fade. One sleepless night, he wandered the city streets, observing people glued to their screens. An idea struck. What if his device could merge digital technology with real-world interaction? Fueled by inspiration, he raced home to sketch a new blueprint, determination reigniting. Weeks of tireless effort turned his sketches into a wearable device that projected holograms into the air. Friends doubted him, warning it was too ambitious. But he pressed on, refining the prototype until it glowed with potential. At an innovation fair, he nervously unveiled his creation. Onlookers hesitated, skeptical, but as the holograms came to life, their amazement grew. Crowds gathered, eager to try the device. For the first time, he realized his work had shown people what they didn't know they needed. His dream had become a reality. In her minimalist office, a 30-year-old woman sat surrounded by sketches and notes, her whiteboard overflowing with ideas. Overwhelmed by the sheer volume of possibilities, she felt paralyzed, unsure of where to start. Late one night, she noticed a pattern in her past successes. They were all simple and focused. Taking a marker, she began crossing out distractions, saying no to unnecessary ideas. Slowly, clarity emerged, and a single bold concept stood out. With renewed determination, she poured her energy into building her design. Friends questioned her decision to strip away features, calling it overly simplistic, but she stood firm. Every detail had a purpose, and she refused to compromise. On launch day, she presented her sleek, minimalist creation to an audience. The product's elegance and focus resonated, earning widespread applause. She realized that innovation wasn't about doing everything. It was about saying no to what didn't matter, so the best ideas could shine. Have you ever wondered if the work you do truly fulfills you, or if you're simply going through the motions? Her days blurred into each other. Endless reports, glowing screens, and tasks that felt meaningless. Each evening, she walked home, wondering if this was all life had to offer. One day, she passed an outdoor pottery class, drawn to the sight of people lost in creation. It stirred a memory of the joy she once felt while painting, a passion she had buried long ago. Determined to rediscover herself, she signed up for an art class. At first, her strokes were hesitant, and doubts from her colleagues nagged at her. "Why waste time on this?" they asked. But as her confidence grew with each completed painting, so did her understanding of what truly mattered. Months later, her apartment brimmed with her work, and her paintings were invited to a gallery. Surrounded by her creations, she felt a sense of pride and fulfillment she had never found in her office job. She had finally found work she loved, work that made her feel alive. If today were your last day, would you be proud of the work you're doing? Or is it time to follow your heart? Have you ever felt frustrated when others settle for less, knowing excellence is within reach? In the depths of a dense jungle, a man stood over a half-built shelter. His companions, indifferent to the flaws, insisted it was good enough. But for him, good enough wasn't enough. Not in a place where mistakes could mean survival. That night, rain poured through the gaps, soaking the ground beneath them. As his companions huddled in defeat, he worked tirelessly to reinforce the frame, his hands raw from the effort. Their apathy frustrated him, but he refused to settle for mediocrity. At dawn, he began building a new shelter. Every beam was measured, every vine secured. His companions watched in silence, curiosity gradually replacing indifference. Slowly, they joined him, their hesitant movements growing steadier under his guidance. By evening, a sturdy shelter stood against the elements. It wasn't just a roof. It was proof of what could be achieved with care and persistence. His companions sat beneath it, quietly realizing the value of striving for more. Do you demand excellence in your life, or do you sometimes settle for less? What could you achieve if you raised the bar? Have you ever wondered if working alone is holding you back from achieving your true potential? In a small startup office, a young visionary struggled to bring his app idea to life. He handled everything himself: design, coding, marketing, but the weight of it all slowed him down. Mistakes piled up and exhaustion took over, yet he refused to ask for help, convinced no one could match his passion. One evening, after another failed attempt, his team finally intervened. "Let us help," his lead designer urged. Hesitant but desperate, he opened up about his struggles. At first, sharing control felt uncomfortable, but soon their ideas transformed his vision. Each team member contributed unique skills that elevated the project beyond what he could achieve alone. Months later, the app launched to incredible success. On stage at the launch event, he looked at his team with pride, finally understanding the power of collaboration. Together, they had created something extraordinary. Do you rely too much on yourself? Or are you open to the power of teamwork? What could you achieve if you let others help? Have you ever held onto an idea so tightly that letting go felt like failure? In a cluttered workshop, a man stared at the broken pieces of his invention. It was supposed to change everything, but after months of effort, it crumbled in his hands. He refused to accept defeat, spending days rewiring, adjusting, and hoping. But each test ended the same: sparks and silence. Frustration turned his workspace into chaos. Prototypes piled up, tools lay scattered, and his confidence began to fracture. Late one night, sitting among the wreckage of his work, he finally admitted the truth. This idea wouldn't work. The weight of denial lifted, replaced by a quiet sense of clarity. The next day, he cleared his table, setting the failed invention aside. Failure didn't mean the end. It meant a lesson learned. With renewed focus, he began sketching a new design. This time, he worked carefully, testing each step and learning from past mistakes. Days later, when the new device came to life with a steady hum, he smiled. Success wasn't about avoiding failure, but improving through it. Have you ever turned failure into a stepping stone? What did it teach you? Share your story.